What's up, guys? Raccoon or whatever. No, I wouldn't say I'm back, but relatively start a new series. I'm going to continue the cheated series. You can already tell what this is going to be about by the title. Now, in this one, Deku does have a quirk. He's not born quirkless. And you're wondering, if he's born with a quirk, why would he be depressed? You'll find out soon. Now, I'll tell you the quirk after introducing everything. Now, we look at Deku, who has a sister. His sister, let's say Izuka. Why not Izuka instead of Izumi? Izuka. Nah, forget the whole Izumi shit. It's Rim. Yeah, Rim. Rim Midoriya. Let's just make it that. So, they were not twins. Deku is 1 year older than Rim is. So, we look at Deku and Bakugo, who are 2 years old. They have been hanging out like they did in canon. Best of friends. And Bakugo, he hasn't started his whole superiority bullshit yet. He's friendly towards everybody, including his mom in this one. Because in this one, he's more understanding when it comes to parental love. Skip 3 years. They're 5 years old. Rim is 4 years old. And Bakugo has already got signs of his quirk, while Deku hasn't. That is, until they go to the quirk doctor. And on their way there, they decide to take Rim. Hazashi's not in the picture. Deku still doesn't have a father. As they get to the quirk doctor, as the quirk doctor will tell Deku, well, not tell Deku, but take some blood from Deku. This causing Deku to cry. And Deku's always a happy child. So, and whenever the doctor came back with Izuku's quirk, he said that this is a extremely dangerous quirk, and that it will be very hard for such a young boy to control. As the Inca would ask what his quirk is, just so she could know, and the doctor will tell her it's cursed speech. Now, this cursed speech is different from others. It's not where you can just say something and they get cursed by what you said. Anything he say can be bent to his will. He can bend reality to his will. So, the doctor suggests giving Deku a muzzle. Now, that's not being like a dog muzzle keeps him barking. This being a muzzle that would hold his mouth shut and pretty much won't let him speak until he has full control over his quirk. But Deku still can't use it. Because if he says one wrong thing, slips up or anything, he could easily kill somebody. But Deku's not going to be giving training about his quirk. All he's given is the muzzle. Now, we go to school the next day as Bakugo would ask what Deku's quirk is after telling Deku that his is explosions. And Deku wouldn't be able to say anything, as Bakugo was confused about the thing on Deku's face, as Deku would write, it's some type of muzzle? Bakugo would ask what that is, and Deku wouldn't know, but Bakugo asked what his quirk was, and Deku would say cursed speech. Bakugo would be like, oh, that's so cool, can you show me? And Deku would try to pull the muzzle off, but he realized it's bolted into his jaw. He can't speak. But every month, they would go back to the quirk doctor and have the muzzle changed. The only time Deku's allowed to take the muzzle off is at the court doctor's office. And he uses his quirk there from time to time. Well, Deku does still get bullied, though, because he's not allowed to use his quirk, and people think he is quirkless. He made a bogus quirk just so he wouldn't be quirkless. Pretty much. You get the picture. Now, we're going to fast forward 5 more years. They're 10 years old. You got Rem, who is 9, and her quirk is a strong telekinesis quirk. Actually, she has 2 quirks. She has fire breath and strong telekinesis. She leans to her telekinesis side because she never had a father figure. But she did have a caring big brother. Now, Deku, he would care for Rem quite a bit, but he was never allowed to speak to her. After 5 years, he wasn't really allowed to speak to his family members other than being at the court doctor, and that's inside a court-canceling room. And they still haven't made the advancements of court-canceling bracelets and shit like that yet. They're probably going to make that soon. But Deku would always care for Rem, pretty much doing whatever she asked for. Practically spoiling her a bit, but not too much. As whenever he was in, say, 4th grade, she would be in 3rd. Not much happens between there, but Deku has slowly started to, his mental state started to deteriorate. He's grown less caring towards Rem, and she's noticed this. And he's grown more of a coldish, standoffish person. He doesn't really want to be around anybody. Give me a second. Yes, as I was saying. Now, we're looking at Deku, who's 14. And I wouldn't say it's the last year of middle school. They're in 7th. At this point, Deku shows no emotion. And he's become a tad bit suicidal. Maybe wondering why. It's because in this one, Bakugo bullied Deku a lot more mentally than physically. He basically tried to fuck Deku up instead of physically, mentally. He wanted to destroy Deku's mind. Which almost worked out. But you got Rem, who would always comfort Deku. But Deku would try to avoid her the best he could. Last year of middle school. As them two, Rem and Deku, don't talk at all. In fact, Deku hasn't talked in almost 10 years. Hasn't spoke a single word. Now, this is around the time court canceling bracelets and things like that are being made and manufactured, while they asked Deku to come in to test it. As he would come inside, as they would hand him the bracelet and he would put it on, as he would take the mask off, and as he would move his jaw, stretch it around a bit, kind of getting used to using his jaw muscles again. And if you must know how he ate through a tube in his stomach. Simple. So, they would have someone come in and for Deku to test it on. Now, they'd bring a dummy in as they would walk in. As they say, go ahead and try to use your quirk. As Deku would say, hi. And just those words alone ripped the test dummy apart into pieces, destroying it. As everybody there was horrified. That simple 2-letter word could have killed one person. And they realized that the court canceling thing did not work, so they had to think of something else. But little did they know that Deku was subconsciously speaking, but it wouldn't come out. He wouldn't say the words, but he lip sync them pretty much. It's like he was speaking without a voice though. So every time he would do that, he accidentally would cut off certain things. Like his emotions, he accidentally did that to himself. He didn't lose them, he cut them off. The only emotion Deku has right now is sadness. Now, as I said, Deku was 14 at this time. And Rem was there as she watched this, as she was somewhat happy. Happy that her brother was actually able to do something, but she was also scared for her brother, just in case he accidentally ever killed somebody. Last year of middle school. And I may be rushing this a bit because there really isn't much between Deku being 5 and Deku being 15 in the anime. Doesn't really go into much detail. So, last day of school, teacher comes in and asking everybody to fill out these flyers on what they want to do when they get older, and he said, nah, just kidding, I know you all want to be here. As everybody will start activating their quirks, and then Bakugo, being his typical dickhead, will throw that same comment he threw in the anime, which was, if you really want a quirk so bad, take a swan dive off the roof of the building and pray for a quirk in your next life. Now, this hit Deku very differently than all the other comments. Hit Deku more or less a painful way. It's been so long since he actually felt pain that this was new to him. As Deku would write on the whiteboard, after Bakugo and them left, if that's what you want. As he would go up to the roof with no hesitation at all and jump. As he was about to hit the ground, he stopped. Stopped just before he hit the ground. As he may be wondering, why did he stop? With a blank expression on his face. As he would look around, and he'd see in the window his little sister holding her hand out, who caught him. Tears flooding her eyes. As she would begin slowly lowering him to the ground and rush out there. As soon as she got out there, she tackled Deku, calling him an idiot. A very big, stupid idiot. As all Deku could do was just look at her. He couldn't speak because he was afraid he could do something that had hurt her. And as Deku would tell her he's sorry, as they would leave school and take the same path they usually took, but Deku didn't notice that there was a manhole. Don't know what the manhole is, that's a sewage thing, that was moving around a bit. As they walked past it, a green sludge jumped out and attacked them. This green sludge covered Deku because he pushed Rim out the way. And she would try to use telekinesis to pull Deku out, but the grip that the sludge had on him was too strong. As while this was happening, Rim accidentally ended up pulling Deku's mask off. As he would say, "Thanks, Rim." This causing an ice wave to freeze the sludge filling with Deku inside. But Deku didn't get frozen. He just was in a pocket. As he would start to somewhat think of a way to not get rid of it, but use his quirk. As he would start to think and brainstorm. As he would think that he has to have a certain goal in mind when he speaks. As this goal, he wanted to disperse the villain. As he would say, slowly disperse. Immediately, the ice exploded, killing the sludge villain. As Rim would rush up to Deku, hugging him and asking if he's alright. And him almost speaking. 1 second. almost sneezed. Never mind, ended up sneezing anyways. As Deku was almost about to speak, until he stopped himself and grabbed his mouth. As he would whisper to himself, mute. This creating a darkish aura over his face that wouldn't let him speak and wouldn't let people see through it. He could see, it's almost like a black mirror. You could see through one side but not the other. As he would use this permanently. He couldn't figure out how to take it off, but he would say unmute, mute, mute, unmute. It wouldn't work. Nothing would work to get rid of this mask. Now, just so you know, I already have a ship in mind. I've done it before, but that series has ended for the moment. It's not my zombie series, so don't worry about that. It's a different one. So, as Deku and Rim would make it home, Inko would help them out. Now, 10-month training. I'm trying to take my best to make this one really slow to train Deku's quirk. Well, Rim will be doing her own training, because they did meet All Might that day, and Rim was a big fan of All Might, but Deku wasn't, so she would stay there and ask him questions and things like that. Bakugo incident never happened because Deku killed the sludge villain instead of, trapping him. Now, quick second. This is what Deku looks like as he is 15 right now. As he would walk to the door and tell his mom that he would be gone for 10 months. Rim, hearing this, as well as Inko, will both be confused, shocked, somewhat sad. As Inko would ask, why will you be leaving, Izuku? As he would say he's going to go and try, well, he wouldn't speak, but he would write this. As he would say he was going to go try and train his quirk. Get better mastery over it. As they both would somewhat be reassured as well as a bit happy about it. Now, a week later, Deku has found a good, safe place to train his quirk. As he would, he wouldn't remove the mute, but he could speak through it. As he would be speaking. The first thing he would say was explosion. Now, a tree in front of him would explode immediately, sending wood everywhere. Some of it hitting him a bit, but not cutting him, but just bouncing off of him. As he would start to think more and more and more. So far, he's figured out the main way to activate his quirk or use it would be having a firm goal in mind. As Deku would ponder this for hours, and he would try to use his quirk, as he would say one full sentence, as he would give a target, a location, and a damage. Not damage, but a mortality rate. 100 times the explosion, 2 times the explosion, 5 times the explosion. He can amplify his power to an infinite number, but it will do damage to his body if he decides to use an enhancement power. Almost like One for All. He can enhance other people if he chooses to. As he would say, explode the tree 50 meters to my right, 2 times the explosion. So he would do this. This would explode a lot more than just that tree because the blast was actually pretty fucking big. It wasn't big enough to destroy a city, but it was big enough to destroy an entire block. But Deku's in the woods right now. Now, Deku would begin making compound sentences for moves and things like that. Thinking, pondering. As he would begin meditating. maybe wondering why meditation, because he's depressed. And over this time, he did cut his wrist a bit, but every time he'd cut them, he would think and slowly whisper ways to heal himself, which always seemed to work. So he would never end up killing himself, but he would always end up cutting and healing. Now, 4 months go by. Deku has been able to say full sentences, but only to do attacks. He's learned some defensive moves. But now he really wants to focus on this, not disabling, but making his quirk not always active. So he would try this for months on end. He would get certain parts done, like he was able to say like 1 or 2 words per sentence. So he'd speak like a robot almost, but not really, because he's struggling to speak in general. And Deku can use any type of ability he wants. He's really overpowered. He can say like electrocute this, that, and that, and it does it. Shoot. He can literally like make air bullets. On the contrary, Rim has been doing her own training on Dagama Beach, with All Might getting one for all. As she will be somewhat overpowered, but she still will get folded. Now, we're going to go to the last month, as Deku would begin his wording and trying to not destroy every fucking thing in his path. But during this time, he wouldn't feel this, but he would sometimes get glimpses of someone watching him. Now, this would be the last month for the 3rd years of UA. To go to UA. So there are about to be a whole bunch of UA students who are about to graduate and start their debut as pro heroes. Now, Deku would see some fluffy ears by a bush as he would go up and pet them. But instead of the animal running away, it'd make a weird, soft moaning noise. Deku would jump back, and he would just say, "What the?" Because that was the only thing he could say. As a little bunny woman would sit up, touching her ears, and a bit blushed, asking him not to touch her ears again. As he would ask, "Who the hell is she?" And he thought that was a bunny. Well, he would say, "Who are you?" He would take long pauses to finish his sentences. As this woman would ask, "Why don't you speak in full sentences?" As he would again say, "My quirk." Now, he hasn't gone back to his house once during these 10 months. Now, this would be a UA student who is about to graduate. Now, you may already be knowing who this is, as she would ask who he is, and he said, "Izuku Midoriya." Like, taking long pauses, almost sounds like he's stuttering, but he's not. As she would say, I forgot Miriko's name. It was like Rumia something. I'm just gonna say Rumia hero name Miriko. If that works. As Deku would say, "Hi." Now, Miriko would ask Deku what his quirk is, and he said, "I'll show you." As he would point at a tree, and he would say, "Disappear," and the tree would vanish. The roots and all would disappear, as well as this thing's holding the roots up, which means the ground somewhat fell in. A lot of other things would happen, as Miracle would be utterly shocked that this was not a person to be played with. And she still has that fiery spirit, but she's still anyway, so she has to contain herself a bit. So, this meaning, Aizawa's already graduated. He's like in his 40s or 30s, something like that. Doubt that man's in his 20s. But he's already graduated, respectively. Miriko's younger than him, I'm guessing. I don't know, I didn't decide to look that up. As Deku would walk over by a tree and say, "Cut," and several lines would appear on his arm as they would start bleeding. As Miriko's freaking out, I was like, "What the hell are you doing? Why would you?" As he would say, "Heal," and immediately goes back to normal. Miriko's fucking confused beyond belief. She doesn't know what the hell this kid is or what the fuck he's doing. As she would ask him what he's doing out here, he says, "Training." And again, she would ask him his quirk's name. He would say, "Cursed speech." As he would ask what that is, and he just decides not to speak anymore. And just cuts a tree, builds planks out of it, and tie it, and just says, "Right," as he would give a description of his quirk. That being able to say his words will bend anything to his will. Reality, matter, anything, he can bend it to his will. With his words. As Miracle would say, that's a really strong quirk. So a very dangerous one. Now, Miracle would have to leave at this point because it's like, 7 o'clock. Yeah, just 7 o'clock, not in the morning, 7 p.m. As Deku would wave by, as he would still sit there. Miracle looking back as Deku would say something off in the distance that she couldn't hear as the house would appear. The next day, Miracle comes back early in the morning, because this would be a Saturday, no school, and dorms have not been implemented because no villains have attacked UA yet. As Deku would not have been woken up by this time, he's still asleep. Miracle would be walking in the forest where she last saw him, and she would see a very modern-looking house that was, like, pretty advanced. And she would go up to it and knock on it, waking Deku up as he would open the door. As he would be pretty confused. Not that much, though, just slight confusion. Now, over this time, Rim and Inko have been looking for Deku, but they couldn't really find him. As Miracle and Deku would grow somewhat close, they're friends. They know each other for quite a while. Miracle is only 3 years older than Deku because Deku's about to start his first year while she just finished her third year. So since Deku's 15 now, she would be 18, about to turn 19. Yeah, why not? And Deku's about to turn 16 because he turned 16 in the anime as it started. 30 days go by, being the full month, as Deku would now be getting ready. As he would walk out and start heading towards somewhere. As Miracle would come by and start walking next to him, she asked where he's going, and he said, UA. And she would light up. She said, "You're going there? No way." Miracle would have already started her agency by now, as she had already gained some reputation while being a hero in training. So, he would tap Miracle on the shoulder and just say, "Teleport." as they would appear in front of UA. Everybody's looking at them, confused on where the fuck they came from. As Deku would begin walking in, as he would hear a familiar voice. As the voice would say, "There you are. Finally found you." But that's what we living off here, folks. Hope you guys like this. Yeah, and I've started this new series for the fun of it. Well, hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch y'all later.